there was an influx of customers that came in, and one of these women I'm speaking, she stopped drinking her pot of tea, washed her hands, put on some gloves, and came behind the bar like, "What do you need?" Right? And I'm just like, "Oh, thank you so much," because I'm struggling.
Close to Home Studio presents Resilient Small Businesses, Brooklyn Edition, with me, Mo Mullen, a series of conversations with extraordinary, resilient entrepreneurs sharing what they've learned and how they've adapted this past year. Join me for insights and inspiration as we uncover how to thrive in this increasingly unpredictable world. I believe the future is local, and I hope this series will help you connect more deeply to your place and understand what it truly means to live close to home. Welcome. Hi, I'm so delighted to be in conversation today with Jamila McGill, the co-founder of Brooklyn Tea in Bed-Stuy, another one of my neighborhood favorites, and a real anchor of the Bed-Stuy community. Welcome.
Thank you, Mose. Brooklyn Tea is all about bringing some of the best and most intriguing teas around the world to your doorstep. We love how other cultures experience tea, and to bring that to everyone bit by bit is one of our aims and what we hold dear.
So I want to roll back to 2014, and in 2014 you met Allie, your husband,
Yeah.
business partner, and you were introduced to tea. Will you tell us a little bit about that experience?
So I am a Southern girl. That means that I am iced tea, like sweet iced tea, Arnold Palmer. That is my mainstay. When I started dating Ali, it was entering a new dimension. So I would come over and he would make me these beautiful pots and cups of tea with cinnamon sticks at the bottom. And there were these beautiful blooming teas. And it's so hard not to get caught up in it. It felt so intimate. It felt super romantic. So I easily fell in love with the tea and the guy. And a lot of what our initial dating looked like was tea hopping instead of bar hopping, smelling teas, drinking it, talking to founders and business owners. And so it really quickly evolved into a business concept and idea. We went to these shops, we would have these cute little notebooks, and we would write down everything that we noticed. Aesthetic, what were the tea varieties, how were they properly steeped, what did the bathroom look like, what did the customer service look like, what did the uniforms look like. And that was, I guess, the beginning of what would later become our business plan and thoughts for our core values for the store as well.
So basically, he wooed you into a relationship and a business, one cup of tea at a time.
I mean, here I am in the middle of the shop.
All right, so tell me about the moment, because you were thinking, like, are we going to do it in DC or are we going to do it in Bed-Stuy? Tell me about the moment when you're in Bed-Stuy and you guys have the, like, this is the home for the tea shop.
Yeah, it was such a back and forth deciding. We were long distance for the first 2 years of our relationship. He was based in DC and I was here in Brooklyn. And Atlanta was also an option on the table, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Because I'm originally from Atlanta. So we would do these walking tours of neighborhoods, so whether it be DC or whether it would be Brooklyn. And when he came up to visit me, I said, "You have to visit Bed-Stuy with me." The energy just felt perfect. I started as a teacher in Bed-Stuy, and there's a great sense of just camaraderie, kinship, and community. There's a great sense of supporting small business, supporting small Black business. And so there was just a lot here. And if you know anything about Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn has a lot of cultural cachet. It's one of those names that's heard around the world. So it's just so much abundance here.
So you took a big financial risk to start the business, as most small business owners do.
Yeah.
Take me back to that time.
We were in 2018, and we had applied for an SBA loan. We had pretty much got accepted and approved for the loan. We were well on our way to also get a grant for a business plan competition that we entered in with the Brooklyn Public Library. And so we had all these things set up, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to be pretty financially set. So we signed our lease September 2018, thinking that we were going to have all this money coming through, and none of it came through at the time of build out. So I had to then clear out my entire savings. So everything that I had saved as an educator for like the past 6, 7 years, totally going like $0. Ali also had to clear out some of his savings as well. Um, and so we were at, I mean, negative 100 at that point.
Mhm.
But we had already committed to the lease. We'd already put so much into having Brooklyn Tea. We were already trying to work on a trademark, which was one of the reasons why we signed a lease as soon as we did, right? We thought we were going to open a store in 2020, but trying to hold on and make those appeals for our trademark, we had to push forward with the store. And
Mhm.
I mean, that was hard. It was tough, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. It was one of those decisions where you have to really just push past all of your fears because they're right there in front of you.
So it's December 2018, and you open the doors to the shop. Tell me a little bit about what was the reception of the community.
I mean, Mo, it was awesome from day one. A lot of why we were excited to open the store is because we did pop ups and festivals prior to, and every time we had a festival, people would say, "When are you going to open a store? You have to open it here in Brooklyn," you know? And so there was already so much energy and love and support, and it came pouring in the doors. So we opened on the 22nd, 3 days prior to the Christmas holiday, and sales were looking pretty sharp for a first time business. 22nd, 23rd, 24th felt really strong. Then we get a call on the 25th from our landlord. The place is flooded. And so then we come back to the store on Christmas Day, and there's pools of water upstairs, and really the basement is it's in shambles. Pockets of water so heavy in the ceiling that it's creating these air bubbles. And these are newly painted ceilings and walls. These are newly done floors. Like we still hadn't paid it off at this point, right? And then we had to do it all over again.
And what did you do? How did you finance it? How did you approach it?
Honestly, I mean, it came out of our savings again. Luckily, we had a contractor who let us pay it in 3 installments.
I mean, any business, particularly small businesses, is just like a series of unexpected
Yeah,
things over and over and over
yeah.
again. But that is, especially after opening and having such a warm reception and the years it took to like the small notebooks leading up to the vision and then opening the doors. I mean, I can't imagine. You also shared with me a little bit about some of the women in the neighborhood who to say they've gone above and beyond is a gross understatement. Um, but have just shown up for you and for Brooklyn Tea in a way that is truly story worthy. Is there anything you can share about a few of those folks and what that's been like?
It was almost as if the neighborhood had a rallying cry to make sure that we got off on a strong start. And so we would have women here who would help us mop and sweep. At the time, it was only myself and Ali who ran the shop, and yes, we were spread thin, and maybe we didn't put on enough a good enough game face as we thought we did. They would go in the kitchen and wash dishes and put up chairs, and there were times because Ali still to this day works his full-time job, and he would be called out to go to DC every 2 weeks. The ladies would stay in the shop with me until it closed because they didn't want me to be in the shop by myself. And so I always had this village around me now, and we like to say it takes a village to raise a tea shop, right? We always had strong and supportive women in our corner to just kind of make sure nothing fell through the cracks too much. Yeah, there was this one moment where I was in the store by myself again because he was out of town, and there was an influx of customers that came in, and one of these women I'm speaking of, she stopped drinking her pot of tea, like washed her hands, put on some gloves, and came behind the bar like, "What do you need?" Right? And I'm just like, "Oh, thank you so much," because I'm struggling.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. One of the pleasures that I have had as we've been talking is I've also reached out to a handful of folks who I know are customers of yours
Oh,
and love Brooklyn Tea, and a few of them have shared things about Brooklyn Tea with me. So she writes, "I remember when Brooklyn Tea was just an idea. So to watch Jamila and Allie go from concept to retail, navigating the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, while always being so welcoming to the community, new friends, and old ones, has been phenomenally inspiring. Jamila's bright spirit could sell you absolutely anything, but I love that she chose to be our neighbor, tea connoisseur, introducing us to the world many of us don't know super well, while also providing the neighborhood with a perfect place to hang.
Aw, that's so.
One of many. One of many. So March 2020 hits, and how do you guys pivot?
I would love to say that we came out swinging with a pivot. That was not our narrative. We definitely struggled, and it hit us really hard. And there were days where our sales declined by 50%, some days by even 80%. We had to cut our staffing hours. We shortened our business day. Uh, and I mean, it was disturbing, right? And again, that anxiety that I felt when I cleared out my savings, that anxiety shot right back up to the forefront. Um, and the moment that we started to gain a little bit of clarity and momentum is kind of just really thinking about what is the moment calling for. Um, and we're a tea shop, right? We're in the healing industry, right? And so we just thought about some of those herbs and teas that we already have here that has great research and studies behind boosting your immune system, supporting your respiratory system. And so we curated an immunity boosting box. And so we started to see the online sales kind of trickle in from there. And it was like, aha, okay, this is how we're going to stay alive, right? And that was helping and that lifted our spirits, but it wasn't necessarily getting us out of the woods. So you have in June, there's this complete outcry for just the Black Lives Matter movement, which evolved into support Black business. And from there, we received two pivotal, if we want to talk about the word pivot, two pivotal um, shout outs. One was from the Shonda Rhimes, who needs no introduction, right? And the very next day, right, was Beyonce. And so Shonda Rhimes gave us a tweet saying she was very excited to find out about us. And then Beyonce included us in her curated list of Black owners to support. From there, our business has never been the same. Now we actually started to profit off of the online, even though the store was pretty much a desert, to be quite frank. We were able to make up a lot of that loss with the online. And also what that moment gave us was access to a lot of corporations, which I mean, just quite honestly, we wouldn't have had the connections with, and they were reaching out to us and seeing how they could be in partnership. And so there were all these different new avenues that we were able to experience and capitalize off of because of that.
Yeah, you know, I can imagine how those two shout outs would essentially be a rocket ship um, for any small business. It's so earned. Um, it's interesting because you're like many small businesses have really shifted during the pandemic from being a already bricks and mortar experience to moving to being a more digital or online e-com experience. And it seems like that's been the case for you as well. I'm curious now that we're starting to come out the other side of the pandemic, more people are vaccinated, people can come back to the shop. How are you thinking about the balance of those two things and where you want to be putting your investments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that brings us to our new exciting challenge, right? Is we have this whole other part of leg of our business that we didn't have before. And so we plan to open our doors back in May to indoor dining. And if our community proves to be the same support system, which I know they will, as they were before, then we have like uh, two really strong holds in our business, right? And so we are thinking about what does it look like to bring those customers back. And that might look like starting with reservations, one to respect the need to still have social distancing, right? And to better control the foot traffic coming in the door so people feel comfortable and they feel like they can really sit down in a safe space. Um, Another thing is looking into another space, right, and creating a sort of smaller like fulfillment center for ourselves, and so we're not having that clash of trying to manage the demands of the store with the demands of online, because that has been a challenge for us of trying to make sure that both customers, the ones that are in our faces and the ones that are, loving us on the internet, are feeling like they're being attended to.
One of the things that stops me in my tracks every time is that when a neighborhood needs help, when a community needs support, it is almost always the small businesses that rally to help. It's the people and the businesses that have many times the least amount of resources or are the most resource strained that figure out ways to support other people in the community who might need some help or might need a little lift up at a moment. And that's exactly one of the things that you guys have done over the last year. There have been a couple different ways that you've had the chance to give back to your community despite the challenges, financial challenges, and that you were facing as a business. I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been um, our honor to and privilege to have attained some of these accolades. We talk about June, and that same month when we saw those increase in online sales, our immediate thought was, who do we give this to? We created a community leadership award, and that would go to a business or organization in the bedside community that has shown commitment and dedication to our neighbors, whether it be through education, financial literacy, any of those just advancements in the human condition. And so and that would be in the form of, yes, a certificate and some online shout outs, but also with some monetary funds behind it. And then we also created our annual scholarship fund, college scholarship fund. Our first recipient was actually our first ever employee here. She got accepted into an HBCU, Clark Atlanta University. And we know, as Ali and I being like first generation um, college graduates, like the financial stressor is there, and we wanted to help alleviate that in the best way that we could. And so that will continue on, both of them. I named them as annual because we are committed to, as long as we're open, having those awards available for the people in our neighborhood and community. If you are in Brooklyn, come down 524 Nostrand Ave. We're also opening our second location in Atlanta. Uh, yeah, that's what
Whoa, there
yeah,
we
there was a
go.
little Easter egg I planted earlier. Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that
Yeah.
coming. That's amazing. So where's the new spot going to
Yeah, so
be?
it's going to be 10 minutes from Spelman, my school. I am a Southwest Atlanta born and raised kid, and so it's in that neighborhood, right? We wanted to foster some of that same relationship and rapport that we have grown here in Brooklyn with my hometown of Atlanta. So we're looking to open that in early summer.
Based on what you've learned over this last year, what advice would you want to share with other small business owners?
As I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of valid fear that goes into being a business owner. There are some that just come from a place of um, holding on to the idea of failure too much, that you don't allow yourself to like be pushed and grow. Um, and then there's other times where it's just like, okay, I may lack the resources for that, and it doesn't mean that you can't tackle that as well. It just means that you need to stretch outside of yourself and find those resources. Is that it doesn't go away. It's always there, and it's just figuring out how to manage it and making sure that it's not keeping you from moving forward.
Beautiful. Thank you. We are so lucky to have you guys in Brooklyn and to have just all the heart and love and sweat and grit that you've put into Brooklyn tea. We're so lucky, and Atlanta doesn't even know it's coming for it. I can't believe they're getting a second location. That's
Yeah.
so exciting. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
Jamila.
much, Mel. It's been a pleasure.